Virgin Media Shorts, championing undiscovered talent.
I'm Jude Goldrei. Some of you, I think, were in the other session just now, so sorry if I'm repeating myself. But I've worked with short films for a long time in various different ways, and I used to work for Life Size Pictures, and we managed the UK Film Council's old short film schemes. So I worked as an exec producer on lots and lots of shorts. I'm now a freelance producer. And I also previously worked as a film advisor at the British Council, so that also kind of involved working out ways to promote British films, including shorts. So I've had kind of done lots of work with festivals and with short film sales agents and so on. And I've got a really brilliant panel here who have worked with shorts as well and have lots of experience in exhibition and distribution, who I'll introduce in a moment. But I just was wondering, just to get an idea, how many people have made a short film here? So loads have made a short film, brilliant. How many of you have had a short film in a festival before? There's a few there. And how many have got like a sales agent? So no one's got a sales agent. And has anyone entered Virgin Media Shorts competition? So a few, okay, brilliant. Okay, so yes, I'd like to just ask the panel if we just introduce yourselves and then just tell us briefly how you work with short films and sort of also in the context of exhibition and distribution. Will.
Hello everybody, my name's Will Massa. I work at British Council as a film advisor in the film department, and I work with shorts through the British Council by overseeing the Short Support Scheme, which is a short film promotion scheme designed to get UK shorts out to new audiences around the world. We do that by working with a range of festival programming partners, and at the heart of the scheme is a travel grant fund that we run in partnership with BFI, whereby if you get selected into a festival on our key festivals list, we will support you to travel for travel and accommodation costs to that festival. And I can talk a little bit more about that later, but that's how I relate to short film distribution.
Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Siobhan O'Brien. I'm online producer for Virgin Media Shorts. So I know a few of you have entered. I don't know how many of you know much about shorts. It's the UK's biggest short film competition, and this is actually our 5th year. So today, this whole kind of day of sessions is sort of a part of our awards event. So tonight we're actually going to be announcing the winner of this year's Virgin Media Shorts. And so for the first time, we kind of decided to open up the BFI to everybody and just kind of invite all of you guys along, filmmakers, students, to come along and kind of find out a bit more about the journey from making your film to getting it seen. So that's kind of the idea of the whole day. So for those of you who don't know, Virgin Media Shorts, you enter a film, 2 minutes, 20 seconds, it can be about absolutely anything. We have a team of curators who pick usually 12, shortlisted 12 films. This year it's 13. And then we have our judging panel this year, including Julie Waters, who choose the grand prize, and that's what we'll be announcing tonight. So I'm an online producer, I run the website and all the social media, so that's who I am.
Great, thank you.
Hi. I've done that thing on the mic. My name is Katie Jackson, and I'm here kind of as a mouthpiece for London Short Film Festival, at which I've curated screenings and events. But I also run my own short film screenings, and I've run events for a variety of festivals around the UK, like Flatpack, Sheffield Blockfest, Roncage, and I've worked for the LFF as well before. So I'm kind of here to give you an overview of festivals in the UK and how you can kind of get your short seen in a variety of festivals and finding the right festival and becoming part of the community, as it were.
Brilliant. Yeah, sorry.
That's
Thank you. So obviously there's lots to talk about because when you've made a short film, you obviously want people to see it. So it's about finding an audience, but also working out how to kind of raise the profile for the film, and also for yourselves as filmmakers. So there's obviously lots of different ways of doing that, including film festivals, online, others kind of screening events and getting a sales agent. So let's talk first about festivals and and just like to ask the panel, is this usually the first thing that filmmakers try to do or should try and do with their short film, Will?
I think it is still, despite the various other avenues opening up for filmmakers digitally, etc., festivals seem to still very much be the prize for filmmakers in terms of what they're aiming for when they're trying to get their films out. I think it's still very much worth trying to get your film into film festivals. Certain festivals probably more than others will benefit your career, but I think the best thing about getting your film into a festival is then, apart from the kudos, depending on the festival, is then going to attend the festival, meeting other filmmakers, developing projects, and just being part of that community of filmmakers that are all at a kind of a simmering stage in their career when they're coming through. Strategizing for that can be a very time-consuming, sometimes quite costly endeavour. I feel quite sorry for emerging filmmakers these days sitting down in front of something like Without a Box or opening a new spreadsheet to start the 18-month or 2-year process that their film, the life of which their film probably has, and trying for the life of God to work out what to start with, how long to wait until they hear back from X festival before they put it into Y. And I really think you can go down the wormhole as far as you like as a filmmaker, and you can keep flogging your film for 2 years, possibly even more in some cases, and it can be very tricky and it can be very expensive. And I think the more research you do into the festivals that you're trying to put your film in for, and the more realistic you are about the quality of your film in relation to other films that you have seen in festivals that you will hopefully be attending, like London Short Film Festival or Encounters or Edinburgh, just to get a sense of the temperature of the talent that's coming through the ranks. Those things, and using things like the BAFTA list, the Oscar list, the British Council list of festivals that have a benefit for getting into, doing that internet research, being realistic with yourself and using those lists can really help you refine and boil down to, in essence, the kind of festivals that you should be targeting. In that first year, at any rate, if you're not getting any traction with those festivals, then maybe you start to think about whether you have a kind of niche film on your hands. Is it a horror? Is it a gay and lesbian themed film? Is it a detective film? There are myriad festivals catering to quite niche tastes, not only in the UK but also across the world. And then start thinking about going for the slightly lower calibre or B list, not to be disparaging about those festivals, to see if you've got a chance of getting into those. But you do need a strategy, I think, if you're going to pursue the festival's route.
So basically, as a good place to start, you suggested a couple of things. You've got British Council has a list of festivals.
Those are the festivals we support for people to travel to if they get into them. Yeah.
So that's quite a good place to start. If you're just literally overwhelmed and looking for a sort of a list of some really good festivals for shorts, that would be a good place to start.
Yeah.
And also, so the other things you mentioned were BAFTA and Oscars list, so I guess that's so that they're all festivals that qualify for those awards, so it might be a good sign of those being decent festivals to start with. Yeah.
It's just an indication of what, you have to stop, you have to draw the line somewhere. There are hundreds and hundreds out there, and a lot of them are charging fees now, and you can potentially be hundreds of pounds out of pocket by the time you've got into your first festival. The BAFTA, I think there's 75 on the Oscars list and about 35 to 40 on the BAFTA list. It's just a good place to start, to cut through the ranks a bit and refine where you're going to aim to go out to. Yeah.
And the other thing you mentioned was Without a Box, just in case anyone doesn't know what that is. And is there still Short Film Depot?
The Short Film Depot, yeah.
And they're good sites, just in case. Has anyone used those before? Yeah. Actually, they're kind of relatively new-ish, and a while ago you didn't have those, so you'd have to kind of look at all of the different guidelines yourself and dates and stuff. So it's a good way because you can just log in, can't you, and you'll see all of the deadlines coming up for different festivals. That's really useful as well. And Katie, what about with the, say, like London Short Film Festival? Do you have to pay a fee for that festival? Or
Yeah, there is a fee. It's relatively modest compared to a lot of festivals, particularly in the US. I think this year it was £25. But I mean, I'd say I mean a lot of what Will said is very makes a huge amount of sense. It's good to kind of have realistic goals with your film, and if you want to kind of start off and say, I want to get into a BAFTA accredited festival, or which the NSFF is, or an Oscar accredited festival, then yeah, kind of streamline the way you spend your money and target particular festivals. I mean, there are often ways of kind of building up relationships with festivals. If your first film has been at a particular festival, or if it was seen by a particular program at another festival, it's a good idea to kind of to watch out for that. I mean, often I know that at Edinburgh Film Festival, for example, they email you to tell you who watched your film in the DVD library. I mean, kind of follow things like that up and email those people, even if it's a festival you haven't thought of before, and just ask for feedback, or you could say something like, do you think it's got a good chance if I submit to your festival? And then you start a rapport, and that's incredibly valuable.
Brilliant. So that's another interesting thing to mention as well, actually, which is because that's like the market section of Edinburgh Film, or it's the videotape.
Yes.
I
So
don't
that's
think
where kind of short film sales agents and distributors will go looking for things.
Yeah, because there's some festivals that obviously applying to festivals relies on getting into them, but some festivals have a market which any film that enters can get into. Edinburgh sometimes has had one for shorts. I don't know if it does at the moment, but it's worth looking out for anyway. You remember?
It did this year.
This year, yeah.
And from the bigger festivals, it's worth kind of thinking about things like that.
So like Clermont-Ferrand in France is one of the biggest short film festivals, and it's fantastic. And all of the programmers from all around the world go to that festival, but they have a really great market, so you can apply to that anyway and be in that, even if you don't get sort of selected. So,
yeah.
It's also free. It's also
free
to submit to Clermont.
And what are the what's the benefits of getting into a film festival?
I'd say the foremost benefit, as we've mentioned, is that people will be going to these festivals with a view to finding kind of the talent in short films. It's where people come from all over the world, not only sales agents, but even producers kind of looking for upcoming talent, directors or whatever. And anyone in the industry who's looking out for talent will be keeping a pulse on the shorts, and things that win prizes here and there, and maybe will be broadcast. Or there are other festivals are still, I'd say, the predominant one official route, but there are other ways. There's Virgin Media, obviously, but there's Vimeo Awards and things like that.
Yeah.
They also get that exposure, but festivals are kind of unique because it's a concentration of people sitting through these programs, deliberately looking out for things.
Brilliant. And what about, it's also sort of if you're trying to, get funding for your next film, say Will works on the Collaborate scheme, so they have obviously guidelines. Can that help with sort of getting further funding, sort of winning awards and things? Or?
Yeah, I think so. I think, again, having a realistic understanding of the hierarchy of film festivals and what the industry thinks of certain film festivals is going to help you. Sometimes you get a lot in applications, you see people writing that they were in Cannes when actually they were in Cannes Short Film Corner, and they're very distinct things. Cannes Short Film Corner, there is no barrier to entry. You just pay €90 and you're in. It's another potentially good mechanism for getting your short seen by lots of programmers. It's not the same as being in Cannes. The world's big festivals, Berlin, Venice, Toronto, they're great places to play. The major league dedicated short film festivals like Aspen and Oberhausen and Uppsala, Tampere, places like that, they are names that are still quite recognised by the industry, and so if you've won a prize at one of those festivals or at Locarno or something, that really stands out. If you've won a prize at the Lancashire Pig Lovers Short Film Festival because you made one, I mean, to be frank, it's great that you got in there, but it's not necessarily going to do very much for you, for your kind of filmmaking career and CV. But just to pick up on why go to festivals, I find an extraordinary amount of creative collaboration comes out of that environment. Not only is it great, a lot of filmmakers say to me that they have trouble meeting other producers or other writers or directors. They're kind of wandering around, especially for new filmmakers. If you're out of that university environment and you kind of feel slightly disconnected, simply going to a festival, going to screenings and having a drink or going to a party, it pays massive dividends down the line, and you're more likely to get the chat that you want to have with Mr. X at BFI or Mr. Y at Collaborate or another funding body just by going up to them in that environment than sending them an email, one of 150 that they get on a daily basis, that they're going to find it very difficult to have time to respond to. So even if you don't get into a festival, go. I mean, you know, if you're Encounters in Bristol is great. London Short Film Festival, if you're based in London, is on your doorstep, and they do loads of interesting, innovative events around film, not to mention great screenings. So it is still very much an industry based on contacts and personality and networking, which we are quite scared of in the UK, but actually it's no more difficult than having a drink with someone and going up to them and saying you liked the film that they produced, would they be interested in reading your script? And you know, they're just more likely to respond to you. Apart from anything else, the social contract dictates that they have to say something to you, because standing there in silence would be rude, whereas they have the luxury of walking away from a text message or an email. So yeah, those are worth going to, definitely.
I think also going back to what Will was saying earlier about needing a strategy for entering festivals, that's something certainly that I've noticed with Virgin Media Shorts. We get a lot of people entering their film and then emailing me suddenly in a panic saying, oh my god, please delete my film because I can't enter into this festival because it's been online.
Okay.
I think that must be very, very tricky for filmmakers.
Just deciding where to
I think so. A lot of people who enter their film on Virgin Media Shorts, they're first-time filmmakers, they've just made their film especially for the competition, and they think, great, I'm going to put that on there and get that out and get loads and loads of people to see it. But I do think you need to have a strategy and decide what do you want to do with that film, because if you put it online, of course, we can delete it if you want us to.
Yeah.
If you're going to get that out there and put it on YouTube and Vimeo and build up this online profile, you do need to think, actually, am I going to need to delete all of that so I can enter a festival?
With Virgin Media Shorts, does the film have to have been made in a certain time to enter?
Having been made...
being made like this, does it have to be new?
No, not at all, no,
so
anything.
It could be 5 years old.
And it could have been made for anything, it could have been for another competition, it could have been for anything.
So there might be there's an argument for kind of, you know, it seems to be more that it's festivals that want the premiere thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that is why that would be kind of the first thing that you do, and then you can enter Virgin Media Shorts later on.
Yeah, I think if that's what you want, if you definitely want to be going for the festival route, I think you need to be thinking about that in advance, definitely.
Yeah, brilliant. And have you kind of seen any of the Virgin Media Shorts that have been finalists? Have any of them kind of also done the festival circuit as well?
So Luke Snellen, who's here today actually doing a panel, he won 3 years ago. He won with Mixtape, and then he went on to make Disco with the money that he won from Virgin Media Shorts, and that just did amazingly well on the festival circuit. It was just everywhere. He was getting standing ovations. Apparently people were asking for them to play it again. I think at one festival, I'm not sure which one, they played the film 3 times in a row because people loved it so much, which is crazy. And that was just brilliant. And for us to know that sort of came off the back of Virgin Media Shorts was just fantastic.
So and he's kind of been doing both in some ways, building his profile in lots of ways, and doing the festival circuit.
He's been doing so much, and it's got to a point now where he's making his first feature. So
that's
really
great.
successful.
And is Mixtape still available to watch on the site?
It is, it's on our website.
So you can watch all the older ones.
Yeah, everything is on our website and our YouTube channel as well. So we've got all of our previous winning films and shortlisted films on the website. And then we've got a whole other massive selection on our YouTube channel as well. Yeah,
well that's a great resource, because as Will touched upon earlier, it's really important to watch shorts in order to know what's out there and what's doing well, because the problem is having a strategy. You've got to work out whether your film is a Cannes film or a more experiment, or an Oberhausen film, or maybe more of a local film festival. And it's quite hard to know that sometimes. So you've got to, if you can manage to make it to festivals, which is not always easy, that's a great place. But then perhaps online things such as Virgin Media is a good, you can go on and watch all of them and have a look into seeing whether any of them have been films that have also been successful at festivals, and which ones, which will be a good bit of research to do.
The great thing about our website as well is that nothing is more than 2 minutes 20, so it doesn't take you very long. Spend 10 minutes, spend your coffee break sitting down watching a few films. It's quite nice.
Brilliant, excellent. So that's all very interesting. I was going to apologise. We were meant to have someone from Future Shorts here who had to cancel at last minute because he's not very well. So we were going to focus a bit more on sales agents and distributors for shorts, but we can talk about that a bit because we kind of know a bit about that anyway. Yeah, I mean, I'll start with Will. What do you think are the benefits of signing with a short film distributor?
Firstly, we should probably preface the whole thing about shorts, which is they are not a money-making enterprise, really. At the end of the day, you are unlikely. I think throughout and this is just one example, but throughout the history of the UK Film Council funded short films, I think they made 700 in their entire lifetime, something like that.
A bit maybe.
I don't think any of them recouped their budget through sales, or has done to date. So that 700 shorts over a period of about 7 years, was it? 10 years?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
They don't recoup their budgets, and they tend not to be money spinners, really. But I'm sure you knew that when you got into making your short film and you're doing it for the creative enterprise and to help develop your career or get a good calling card or what have you. My feeling about sales agents and distributors is that they can help maximise the value of your short film, and by value I mean the exposure of it. I still think you should be working on your festival strategy and your digital strategy. These can run side by side these days. What a sales agent and distributor, and there are only a handful really of big operators in Europe, what they can do for you is get some revenue back from your film on TV channels and kind of sometimes theatrical bookings, etc. There are some big people to bear in mind are Shorts International, Future Shorts, who are UK based and sadly couldn't be here today, but they're also the kind of the masterminds behind Secret Cinema, which I'm sure you've all heard of. They've got a very interesting website worth checking out. People like Network Ireland Television, who are based in Ireland, who distribute filmmakers like Simon Ellis, who's kind of built quite a good career out of shorts, and other people like Kurzfilm Agentur, who are a German label. And what they will do is they will go to a festival, and if they see a film that they like and that they feel their contacts who acquire films for TV channels might be interested in, they will say, we're very interested in your film, could we issue you with a licensing agreement whereby you, the filmmaker, will agree to license your film to those people for a period of time. And the benefits, I think it's nice additionality for filmmakers. Shorts International have a deal with iTunes, so for their kind of higher profile shorts, often which have kind of quite big name actors in them, there is a chance for money making, because that is, people are increasingly watching stuff digitally. In fact, they're mainly watching stuff digitally now, probably. So it gets you beyond the festival circuit. It'll get you into onto TV channels or bespoke short film channels, who sometimes pay an X amount of euros per minute every time your film is screened. It's unlikely you're going to make much money, if any at all, out of it, but it's nice to be getting your short out there further. I'm not a sales agent or a distributor, and never have been, by the way, but I have sold some films to some of the people I've mentioned before, like Shorts International and Network Ireland Television. If you do get into the scenario whereby someone says, we're interested, please have a look at this contract, it's quite scary to be issued a contract via email. I would always remember that the people in those organisations are always willing to talk you through what their contract means. Try and find another filmmaker that might have been in that scenario and get their advice on whether they've had a good or bad experience with that person. And then, if there's something you don't feel comfortable with or would like to change in the contract, these things aren't set in stone. It's the short film world. It's not nearly as high stakes as the feature film world. You can go back to someone at Shorts International, Network Ireland Television and say, thanks for issuing the contract, but I've still got another 18 months on my film that I'd like to pursue through the festival circuit. Would you mind if we introduce that as a clause so that you don't do anything with it until that time is up? I'm sure they'll agree to that, or what have you. There are only three main things really to look out for in a contract before you get into the fine print, which is the exclusivity, which is whether or not that company takes, you license your film to them and only them for all media, so you then, for example, might not be able to put it up on your website. The term, which is the length of time that license will run for, that's kind of a standard, is kind of 7 years, sometimes it's 3, depending on how much they want your film. And the territory, and that is usually the world, which gives those sales agents the license to sell your film to people throughout the world on your behalf. But my biggest piece of advice about that situation is don't panic. If there's something you don't understand, ask them to explain it and find another filmmaker to talk you through whether or not they've had a good or bad experience with that company.
Right, so yeah, it sounds like it, I mean, it's quite, the short film world is actually quite a small world, even sort of internationally, really, isn't it? So, I mean, with, do you come across all the short film distributors at festivals, and do they, do you, as a programmer, ever approach short film distributors for, you know, suggestions of shorts for your festival?
I personally don't, and London Short Film Festival has a kind of more of a policy of, other than, you know, unless we've seen a film at another festival and we're like, we absolutely must have it, and in that case the tendency tends to be to contact the producers or directors directly, which is very different from the feature film world. There are other short film festivals which do mainly kind of follow the festival circuit and talk to people, find out what's been big, what's had a good reception, and often that involves distributors and sales agents. If there's a lot of interest in a film and kind of a buzz around it, then yeah, as a programmer you need to be kind of conscious of that and consider that. But yeah, I mean, I'd say generally, and I think Will touched upon this a little bit, that there's a kind of lifespan for short films of about 18 months to 2 years, in which they'll sort of pass through the major festivals, the major shorts ones, and also the shorts programs of the kind of all-encompassing film festivals. And often, kind of, they tend to be bought by agents or distributors kind of later on, after they've had that festival exposure and perhaps won prizes, and the distributor's more sure of its reception and its potential in the market, really.
Right. So yeah, so they might kind of, but if they signed a bit earlier, if they managed to get some interest earlier, then would those distributors be going to some of the short film festivals like Clermont and kind of, you know, promoting shorts?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's
so
part of the distributor's role. Often,
yeah.
when a distributor comes to you with a deal, it'll include festival distribution, so they'll take care of pushing it to festivals and making sure it gets the right exposure at the right festivals, like Clement Ferrell. You know, if it's an animated film at kind of the big animation ones like Stuttgart or Ottawa.
So that's probably one of the main benefits in some ways, it's just sort of extra chances of getting into things, seen and so on, rather than the actual money side of things.
Yeah, it's definitely the exposure, and the fact that the distributor will have that knowledge that you don't necessarily have, and the experience and the contacts and that whole world that it kind of, like, I mean, Will said it's a huge amount of work and money to submit to festivals. Yes. It takes a lot of time, and a lot of short filmmakers that I've spoken to are constantly complaining about that.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you manage to strike a distribution deal on early, then often one of the major advantages is they'll take that workload off your shoulders.
Great.
So yeah, there's more than a monetary value there.
So, and Siobhan, have any of the, do you know if any of the Virgin Media shorts that have been finalists have been picked up by a distributor?
That's a good question. I mean, again, I know Luke Snellin has, but I don't actually know. I don't think Oscar has. It's a good question.
Not necessarily the winners, but you know, people on the
shortlist. No, honestly, I don't know. It's good to find out, actually.
Yeah. And sorry, well.
I was just going to say that if you don't get approached by a sales agent or distributor of short films, we do live in the era of the possibility of self-distribution. There are dedicated platforms like Distrify, which now exists. I was on a panel with one of the co-founders who did quite an interesting PowerPoint presentation showing that there are quite a lot of tools on there to track your film around the world, see who's watched it. You can kind of monitor your own. It kind of cuts out the middleman potentially, and you might find that you're massive in Denmark without knowing it, but you don't have much track in the English-speaking world for some particular reason. You can go into all your stats, whereas normally with a contract, when you've given it to a third-party sales agent, you have the right to kind of go into their books and they will report to you quarterly. This is something that for the more time-rich, maybe, and energetic filmmaker, if you really wanted to have a go at it yourself, you could do. It's quite interesting. It's quite powerful, the feedback it can give you about where your film's played, how long people have watched it for, whether there's you can set up a paywall. If you know you're massive, if you know 5,000 people for some reason watched your film in a particular country, the next time you have your film there, in a sense, you have an inbuilt audience. You can say, if you like my last one, here's my next one, but it's $1 this time, or what. Whatever.
That sounds brilliant.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds. That's kind of one of the questions. Really, is the landscape changing slightly? Are there more opportunities online to kind of distribute your short, get an audience, also potentially make some money, and also so actually let's talk about Virgin Media Shorts. What can and there's probably are there other similar competitions as
There
well?
are, yeah, there are a few.
Yeah.
There are more now than when we started.
What can you think of any names?
Reed is probably the other sort of big short film competition around at the moment.
Okay, great. And that you enter with a short film you've made, and there's
Exactly,
a cash prize.
Yeah, upload it online. I think there's a £10,000 cash prize, and I think the film gets shown at Rain Dance. I think that's part of their prize at the moment as well.
Great. So again, so that's good for your profile and potentially money and sort of audience.
Absolutely, and again, it's like shorts. I mean, even just entering your film gets that seen. And if you enter Virgin Media Shorts, your film is going to be on the website. It's going to be on our iPad app and our iPhone app and on TiVo. So just entering, even if you don't win, is getting you massive exposure. But obviously, you're entering to win. And yeah, again, it depends. It depends what you want. It depends. The competitions you enter depend what you want from it. If you want your film to be entered into a festival, then Reed's a great one to go for. And if you do just kind of want a cash prize that you're going to go away and do whatever with, that's great.
Yeah.
And with our competition, we don't just hand you a check and say, see you later, have fun.
Yeah.
You win £30,000 film funding. That the BFI will then sit down with you for a year or however long it takes and help you work on that film and help you get cast and crew and whatever else you need. So not only are you getting the funding, you're also getting mentoring, you're getting really, really valuable experience.
Getting a big commission,
exactly.
Basically.
But I mean, there are lots of other competitions and the prizes are different, so you have to kind of look around and see what you want from it.
And what about, so with Virgin Media Shorts, what about, so with the final 12 or 13, is it, what are the other benefits of being part of that?
So if you make the shortlist, your film is within about a month screened in cinemas for a year. So this year's shortlist now, if you go to your local picture house cinema or independent cinema, there's over about 214 of them now around the country. You will see, before you watch the feature film, you will see one of the Virgin Media Shorts shortlisted films. And in that, from sort of research that we've done, that is one of the biggest kind of reasons to enter.
Yeah.
Because if you make a short film of who doesn't want to see that on the big screen in the cinema.
Yeah.
So yeah, again,
that's amazing.
So again, you don't have to win to get that. That's just instant exposure. Again, it's great to be in a festival, but at the same time, having your film shown in cinemas where people might not even know anything about short film. They might go along to see whatever the latest blockbuster, and bang, there's your short film in front of it, and straight away they're kind of taking notice, and they might remember your name and go away and look you up.
Yeah.
So
you're hitting a whole different audience.
A whole completely different audience, and it will be shown all times of the day. It could be a kids' film, it could be a horror film. You never know. So you just don't know who you're hitting that you'd never have found out about you otherwise.
It seems like because the competition's been going for a number of years now, that it
years
actually is really high profile, and that it just actually being one of those final 12 is really good for your profile as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And there have been various filmmakers that I've met who've got a part of that 12 who've said, you know, since they were part of the final 12, they had some random approaches from people, you know, to send scripts and so on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, somebody who won, I think it was Laura Evans-Johns who won, who was in the shortlist last year, said that within a couple of weeks of making the shortlist, she was getting calls from America. She's like, how on earth are you even finding out about me? And I don't even know how, I mean, you may have found her online, I don't know, but she was getting calls from all over the place saying, we love your film, we want to work with you. So yeah, it's brilliant, you just never know who's going to see it.
I mean, that's obviously a hugely important thing in terms of, you know, what you want to happen to your film, so that's brilliant.
Absolutely.
Can I just ask you quickly how many submissions you get?
It's usually around 1,000.
Right.
Changes every year.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes you kind of see the numbers going down, but the quality of the entries going up. So it's interesting. I mean, the first couple of years, you know, you have a lot of people making films on their mobile phones, for example, and that's kind of gone down over the last couple of years. I guess as equipment has become more affordable, that kind of thing.
It seems like more and more people are now specifically making shorts to enter for Virgin Media.
That's definitely something that we're finding. Yeah, that's the thing. In the first couple of years, obviously, people didn't really know anything about it, and here we were, so we're kind of entering whatever they had, which people still do, and we still definitely encourage that. We don't expect people to have to go away and make a film just for us, but definitely more and more people were doing that, and more people are watching the film, and it's quite obviously been made for Virgin Media Shorts. It's exactly 2 minutes, 20 seconds. It kind of references the competition sometimes. Which is really nice to see. It's really nice that people are kind of waiting for the submission date to start so they can go away and make their film, which is really cool.
I was just going to say something about submission numbers without meaning to be depressing, but in the interest of realism, I think. Something Clermont-Ferrand, which I advise you to have a look at on their website, is a very, it's kind of the mecca of short film for Europe, and they receive annually around 7,000 shorts, of which they program between 1% and 2%. I think they did somewhere between 70 and 140. Is my maths right? What's 1% of 7,000? 70. Yeah. Good. Somewhere like Tampere will receive about 4,000, and they will play about 100. So I just think it's worth saying that it is very tough, and this isn't that you shouldn't apply to places. Of course you should, but I think the better equipped you are with the knowledge of where you're putting your short film into relative to your chances of success, which is also contingent on quality, of course, is worthwhile. How many do you?
I don't know the precise number, but I would guess around 4,000 or 5,000, because the kind of ultimate number that F5 screens kind of ranges has been increasing year on year as submission numbers go up, but it's about 200 films.
Which is quite big.
Which is a lot. Yeah, which is a lot. There's a lot of programs, there's a lot packed in. So yeah, I'd say I think what you said about projecting the kind of place in the overall market for your film realistically, which Will said early on, is a really salient point. I mean, if you think that your film would do better as a Virgin Media Shorts film, whether you've made it for the competition or not, then concentrate on that online audience. You know, if it's stop motion animation, find out what the animation festivals are, and go for it, and build up rapport with programmers so that they will remember your work. I mean, what Will was saying about networking, you're far more likely as a programmer to be looking out for someone's work even if you haven't programmed it yourself before, but if it's been at another festival that you've been in, you've kind of thought, oh yeah, that was interesting, and then
So I mean, kind of on it's very, very competitive, but it also sort of on a positive note, it sounds like there's kind of
I'm sorry.
there's so many film festivals all around the world,
exactly.
And actually one thing I noticed when I was working on the Film Council shorts, we made about 100 every year, and so I kind of saw lots of them coming through, and the ones that they were the ones that got into Cannes and Berlin, and then there were the ones that you didn't necessarily think would do necessarily well, the kind of new film, you know, whatever. But I think sometimes persistence really worked, and actually not all festivals have a fee. So there's something to be said if you've got time to applying to tons and tons of festivals, like interesting small ones. You know, there's ones in like Croatia or Morocco, you know, all around the world that have, or they might have a really specialist thing, whether it's comedy or horror or whatever. Or they might have a theme that year. It might be a theme of dogs or something, and then like you know,
it's important to remember that programmers are people with tastes as well. And, and I think particularly, I know that Philip's approach is very much, and he's very kind of dedicated to keeping submissions at MSFF open, and trawling through and watching all of these films, and often it won't, you know, if something shows kind of promise despite maybe dodgy production values or something, or despite faults, they will kind of, there's a certain loyalty to something which has a kind of original spark, so don't be demoralised if you're rejected by your first, you know, 10 festivals, but, you know, change strategy, try and find the person who will champion your film, because there will be someone who will love your work.
It is absolutely possible that you will not get into a festival, not because the programmer doesn't rate the quality of your film, but because there are lots of reasons. It doesn't, you know, programmers are in the business of designing programs and attracting an audience and developing themes and strands, and it may be that your film is great, but there's just no place for it in that year's edition for the festival. Also, to give a more positive spin now, because I feel guilty of what I said earlier, there are plenty of filmmakers that I know who for 6 to 8 months have not gone to a single festival, and then suddenly they have, and there's a snowball effect builds up. So if you're still 6 months in and nothing has happened, don't lose heart and keep going. And finally, I was involved in a film a couple of years ago that I thought was great, and the filmmakers did too, obviously. And it didn't get into a single festival. And after a year, we were just kind of sat scratching our heads, thinking, this is rubbish. You know, thinking no one knows what they're doing. They haven't got any taste. They're idiots. But it still didn't get into anything. But it got him an agent. Because he took it to an agent and he shopped it around, and the film was, I mean, I would still stand by it and say the film is good, and had the like you were talking about earlier, had that kernel of something in it that suggested that there was a director there that knew how to get performances out, and it didn't have any traction with the festivals, but it did with a talent agent. Now he's got a talent agent, he's being put forward for TV work, etc. So it wasn't to the taste of festival programmers that year, but it moved him on in his career. So there are different things to do with your short.
Showreel piece.
Yeah, exactly.
And so what do you think, it'd be interesting to talk about what you think different people are looking for in a short film. So, you know, sort of thinking about festivals, but also distributors, and also, you know, when you're selecting for Virgin Media shorts. So what are Virgin Media looking for in the shorts?
To be honest, with Virgin Media shorts, we don't select. We have a group of curators who are kind of separate from Virgin Media. And it's interesting when they choose very different things every year, and you never quite know what it is exactly. I mean, on our website we have sort of guidelines as to exactly what it is they're looking out for. It has to have cinematic quality, it has to have a good story. You know, it doesn't have to be perfectly made, it doesn't have to be like amazing production value. It can be rough around the edges, it just has to be a good story. But again, I mean, like you were saying, people have different tastes, and again, like you were saying now as well, if your film doesn't get in one year, it could do the next. You just never know what kind of thing they're looking for each time. I mean, certainly one thing I found with Virgin Media shorts is that comedies tend to do very well.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's just with short films. You know, it's certainly 2 minutes 20 seconds. You need to get a story across. You know, beginning, middle, and end. And a comedy is very good at doing that. You can have a punchline at the end. So yeah, I mean, anyone that knows Virgin Media shorts, our shortlists often do have quite a lot of comedies in them. But yeah, it's really difficult to say what they're looking for. And yeah, we don't get much of a say ourselves as to what goes in the shortlist. Unfortunately, we don't really get to help pick.
What it's still it's so interesting to show. And actually, with those, the good thing is you can watch them and like get a sense of what sort of things are selected out of them. Yeah,
you definitely do see. I mean, obviously, the year after mixtape one, you just saw so many entries that were very, very similar. a little kid, a little boy and a little girl. I mean, I think people do that a little bit too much, maybe. I think
emulating.
Yeah, I think because
yeah.
it's not going to be the exact same film that wins the following year. They are going to want something different. But I do think definitely if you're entering competition, it is a good idea just to get a feel for it.
And Katie, what do you think that that festival programmers and distributors are looking for with short films? What kind of films do you think do well?
Well, there's no kind of blueprint, and I think, like Siobhan said, it's really important. Whilst it's important to look at other people's films, don't copy them. It's kind of, I think what you're looking for is sort of kernel of originality and someone's authorial voice. It doesn't necessarily have to be high polished like Will said, the stakes are lower in short film production. The budgets are smaller. Often it's not your whole career which is dependent on the success of this short. It's something that people do for passion, and it's the same for for a programmer. You're looking for something which has that passion, which isn't necessarily going for a market or hoping to tick a certain box. Certainly, short film festivals that don't have a particular thematic remit, more often than not, you're looking for some kind of genuine drama, or even a lot of shorts tend to be more experimental, or some kind of creative attempt to stray from kind of norm. And it's when you're watching thousands of short films, it's a kind of breath of fresh air to see something which isn't similar to everything else there. It doesn't have to be a particularly complex thing, but I think the core is an idea, really. It's not to do with technicalities or anything like that.
Okay, great. Will, anything to add on that? Any thoughts on what kind of films do you seem to do really well?
It's different strokes for different folks, isn't it? I mean, London Short Film Festival, if you don't mind me saying, I think has a very distinctive program. It's got someone with very identifiable tastes at the helm. And that's
Philip's favourite film. Yeah. There's no getting away from that.
That's fine, and they tend to be slightly left field. They tend to be challenging and unexpected and pushing the envelope, and they're not always perfect. But that's the great thing, is that they get selected.
Philip's kind of programming stamp is very much. Stories which kind of stray from the path, which aren't, it's often rough around the edges, but also with high production values. He kind of is quite open in that respect.
It's always funny in shorts because it's two things. You are in a creatively liberated space relatively to what you would be, to the strictures that would be placed upon you commercially or even creatively at feature film level, which means you have the opportunity to go a little bit wild, but that doesn't mean that doesn't mean be shapeless, formless and idealess. It means push the boundaries a bit in an interesting way and be provocative, and that doesn't mean be gratuitous just because there's no one telling you not to be. It means poke us in the ribs with something basically and make it original, because people don't go to short film festivals to watch the stuff that would be on ITV on a Sunday night, or to see the makings of the next formula beat by numbers script churned out. They want to see something that is provocative, and filmmakers need to occupy that space in the most interesting way possible. There is no set thing. That the whole point is that you go there and you're surprised. And the moment you try and map a set of credentials onto what you're looking for, it kind of defeats the point. But
I'd say it's a good policy to try and make a film which really kind of interests you. I mean, I think if your heart is in the project, if you think it's a good film, then I think it comes across. It's very evident.
Yeah. We're sort of coming towards the end of the session, so I was just wondering, has anyone got any questions? And do we have a microphone? Yes, there's one coming round.
Sorry, would you Hi, Brendan O'Neill, Stickleback Productions. I'm just wondering how long, what's the worth of actually localising your films for foreign markets by doing subtitles and things like that, in order to, you know, get more kind of leverage in Spanish, French, whatever markets?
It's interesting you should ask that, because I was on a panel at Encounters at which the director of Tampere and a programmer from Clermont-Ferrand said they would like to see more films in English, subtitled in English, because it makes it easier. There's an assumption that because English is the prevailing language, that local audiences will just understand it. The moment you get outside any kind of RP middle class pronunciation, you're in quite difficult territory, and Scottish filmmakers, you'll see in Scottish filmmakers increasingly subtitling their things. I think having a subtitling option, if you can afford it and you've got the time to do it, isn't going to do you any damage whatsoever. If anything, it'll be looked on kindly by the programmer, but I still think they'll be looking for the same core qualities in the filmmaking that they would be ordinarily. But it's an interesting consideration.
Yeah. Well, often festivals will ask you for a dialogue list, and they'll make their own subtitles, usually in English, for your film. So as long as you've got a dialogue list and a post-production script to send, then it's often more cost-effective than making your own subtitles.
So it's not required, but it could help potentially. Probably as could having a film that's very visual and isn't reliant on dialogue for the story, I would imagine. But, would do quite well potentially internationally. Any other questions? Oh, it's on there. We pass the microphone on, thank you.
Okay, hi, so my name's Dean. I've just finished a short film, and I've just noticed there's quite a few sort of free festivals just to enter your film in. I just wanted to know how, is it worth sort of waiting and doing sort of stronger festivals, or is there a lot of damage in sending it to free festivals?
You just watch out for things like premiere statuses if you're worried about that. Certain festivals, the LFF for example, has I think requires premiere status.
In the UK, is it?
In the UK, as does Edinburgh. So, for instance, Edinburgh's in June and LFF is in October. If you'd rather it play in LFF, then don't submit it to Edinburgh. Or if you want, it can sometimes. It's kind of a bit of a gamble, because you can maybe play it at a free, smaller festival the minute it's made, and then you might, if it gets. An audience builds up, and then you think, I've got a chance of it being selected for a bigger festival or Clermont-Ferrand or whatever. But I've played it in short film festival of the Alps in the summer, which a touring band or something. Then you might have a problem. So just check and weigh up. Realistically, if your film will end up. If you think it might end up being submitted to an Oscar qualifying festival, which is likely to have kind of premiere status requirements, then just.
But sometimes sometimes it's in your own country, or sometimes it's in
sometimes it's in particular territories, and it can be as local as just the city or the state. Or so there's no hard and fast rules, but it will say, even on with Afterbox or the festival's website, they always. Mention about premiere status.
And they all have different lengths. So I mean, if your film's allowed to be like 2 years, made 2 years ago, then you can possibly hold out a bit in some of those festivals if you wanted to try and film this.
If I were you, I would go to the BAFTA list or the Oscar list and check to see the festivals which would let you know within the next kind of 6 months whether or not you were going to get into them or not. Go to quite a few of them, make sure there isn't any kind of conflict with premieres or whatever. Wait to hear back from them, and if you're not getting much traction, then start going widening out a little bit. It's a bit of a 64,000 dollar question is how long to wait, and whether to wait to try and play in a premiere festival that is principally concentrating on feature films like Cannes, Venice and Berlin, or something that cares completely about short films. There's no easy answer to that, but I would go for some good, you know. Also, it's difficult to say without having seen your film to give a kind of realistic appraisal of what your chances might be. But I think you should start ambitiously, definitely, and then be tough with yourself and realistic. If your first top 5 have all rejected it within the space of 6 months, then broaden out a bit. That would be my advice.
Any other questions? Oh, there's one at the front here. There's one over
I
there.
can shout. I
You
know
shout. Okay.
it's really not. I don't know because there's so many short films made. So some of them they don't get to see festivals. So is there any like kind of path you can see? Because sometimes you realize there's a good film made, but you don't know because not always on Vimeo or YouTube there are those films. So do you know is there any path like you can see all like short films?
So any other places that you can
Yeah, other
see
places, yeah, because
shorts
like-
apart from festivals?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because sometimes you have to wait like years to.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of short filmmakers will, if their film has run the course and done the festival circuit over 18 months, 2 years, they will then kind of release the password protection on their Vimeo, and then you can just watch it on their Vimeo channel. There's no particular place where shorts tend to be collected, I don't think. But
There was.
It used to be.
Called the BBC Film Network used to. I mean, it still went through a kind of an evaluation process, I think, before you got on there. But it was a big repository for lots and lots and lots and lots of shorts in the UK. But sadly, it's been decommissioned. I think it will stay. It will continue to run as a site, but they're not taking on any new content. Although I've heard that they might be looking to rejuvenate it in a different form. But BBC Film Network is a place to see lots of films that won't necessarily have done. Is this about you to go and watch them, or to get your film?
Yeah, just watch them, just like to see what's kind of.
There's loads on the BBC Film Network, and you can check them out by region, by genre, by rating. You know, it's a good place.
So basically, they're not sort of putting new ones on now, are they?
No, they're not.
But
They're not acquiring
there's some
them.
amazing shorts on there.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a really good place to start.
It's our website. Yeah. It's our website.
It's a website, BBC Film Network.
It's cool. Thank you.
I mean, if you want to go way back, there's even the Mediatek here. You can just watch huge amounts of, I mean, not even shorts, like fact information films from the 30s and 40s. So if you're interested, like in terms of archives, there's lots.
If you want to get a sense as well, if you've got a kind of tenner to spare, if you want to get a sense of past kind of prize winners that have done the festival circuits and played at big festivals, there's compilations. Shooting People made a compilation called Best versus Best. There's 2 volumes of that. Cinema 16 have done various compilations. A lot of them are with established directors, but some of them are with more emerging directors. So it's good to to have something to aim for when you look at those.
But it would be nice to see also like some like films which didn't make it. Kind of like.
That haven't been to festivals.
Haven't made
Some
it.
of them
Yeah, well, I was going to say.
So you can see, you can compare what you do and what they, kind
Yeah.
There's actually
not just to see the best ones.
Yeah, it's a good question.
There's a screening night run by 2 girls that I know called the Salon de Refuses, which the remit of it is if your film has been rejected from another festival, they will play it. And funnily enough, actually, there's a film which they played last year called The Making of Lombard, I think.
Which one?
Which then went on to win Edinburgh. So you can kind of be at the end of your tether and thinking that you're scraping the barrel, and then something like that can really launch your film.
And which is now on our scheme, and we're programming a week of shorts in Russia, and they're playing.
That's brilliant. I mean, actually, that's another good point, because I've always got a lot out, and I still go to things, just local kind of short film screening nights, and not lots of particularly cities have them. I've been to lots in London, Manchester, Sheffield, Birmingham. There's just kind of passion. What's great about them is when you go, you'll see a load of like complete range of short films, and also you get lots of filmmakers there. So it's really, I've like met loads of filmmakers and things like that. So it's really good networking and really good film watching. So highly recommend doing that.
Yeah, I mean, on the back of the kind of pop-up craze, a lot of short film nights have started in London, and it's sometimes hard to kind of find out about them. The Scala kind of Beyond season, which they had this summer, which was a repeat of last summer's Scala Forever, they're kind of just this umbrella group, and they kind of accept submissions from film clubs to do nights, and they're a good website to go to just to find out who's screening films. And a lot of these screening clubs, I run a occasional screening night, and my niche is 16mm, so if you've got a film on 16mm, email it to me, or send me the print, obviously. But you know, normally there will also be a transfer. But
What's that called?
it's called the Suitcase Cinema, because of the kind of roaming nature of the event, and yeah, it's the remit is kind of quite wide. But obviously, the films that I screen tend to be old. I don't think I've screened anything which has been more recent than 2000. So, I mean, if you're interested in seeing older shorts, or kind of finding out about the history of short films, or what was big 20, 30 years ago or whatever, there's plenty of people still looking out for gems that didn't necessarily, weren't necessarily made by the people who went on to become Spielbergs or whatever, but
Yeah, I mean, can people sign up to be on the London Short Film Festival newsletter if they email on the site? Because that's brilliant, I get that, and there's always loads of lists of like short film nights and things like that, and not just in London as well, like in other cities. So highly recommend that, because you kind of find out about everything through that newsletter, like funding, nights, festivals.
Yeah, it's a very good kind of umbrella mailing list.
So that just, if you just like, I think if you just find the website, London Short Film Festival, you'll be able to contact through there to get on the newsletter. So I think there's one more, and I think that's the end.
Question for Siobhan. I was just wondering, is there any plans to have a longer length strand of films, like 5 minute or 10 minute?
No, not at the moment. The reason it's 2 minutes 20 is because that's the amount of time we get in cinemas before the feature film. So, you know, you have like a Virgin Media sort of advert, and then we have the 2 minute 20 film with a little kind of Virgin Media short sting at the beginning and the end. And so that's how it's worked out. That's all we can fit in. But I mean, who knows? We haven't had that conversation yet, but it may well change.
Great. Oh yes, Will's got something to plug.
I'd just like to plug on your way out, there are leaflets. I did stupidly, forgive me if you don't get one, I didn't bring enough of the British Films Directory. There's information about our short support scheme, whereby if you get into those festivals you can come onto the scheme on our website. There's also a leaflet to the British Films Directory. If your film isn't on there yet and you've completed it, please upload it there. It's a very useful resource for international programmers looking for UK content. So they're there, please help yourselves.
Do you want to collaborate quickly?
Oh yes, Collaborate is another scheme that I work on, run by the photographer Rankin and Dazed and Confused magazine, and it's a production initiative whereby they will make 8 films up to budgets of up to 10 grand each. That's now open for submissions and closes at the point either at which they reach 1,500 scripts or on the 31st of November, whichever happens first. And the website is www.collaborate, the numeral TE.com. Clever name.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much to the panel, and thanks so much for listening.
Virgin Media Shorts, championing undiscovered talent.